and return home as quickly as possible with private rooms for rehab to home. Find out more by clicking the Taylorville Care Center icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Your information station, WTIM.
Welcome in to WTIM, your information station. My name is Tim Zalabak. It's time now for the WTIM Morning Show. Let's thank our sponsors before we get moving here with another great interview. Thank you to People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better at Landmark. On the phone line today is Dr. Kent Redfield, Professor Emeritus of Political Science at the University of Illinois. How are you today, Dr. Redfield? Uh-oh, doctor, did you hear me that whole time?
I'm hearing you now.
Oh, goodness gracious. We just did a great intro. We introduced you and this morning show, and you were on mute. So that was good to know. But Dr. Ken Redfield, how are you doing today?
I am doing just fine.
Thank you. Really good to hear that. And thank you for being here with us. Let's get right into it because there is so much going on right now in politics, Democrat, Republican primaries, presidential races going on. And we got you here to talk to us and get it all sorted out. So let's start right here with Illinois and the presidential and legislative candidates. We're talking about the Illinois primary ballot. What's happening there and what challenges are becoming of that?
Okay, so the primary's on the 19th, and of March. You have to work backwards. You've got to get it set so the county clerk knows, what the ballot should look like. They have to get them printed. And so, there's a whole long process just mechanically to get the ballot ready. And then candidates have to pass petitions, collect signatures in order to meet requirements to get on the ballot. We do that so that we don't have a lot of nuisance candidates. If you just said, just send us a note and we'll put you on the ballot, you'd have 25 people running for a legislative seat in a primary. So you want to have requirements so people, you've got serious candidates. On top of that, in Illinois, because we've had a long history of political parties dominating the process, the process is very complicated, and it's really easy to screw things up in terms of just, it has to be the right size of paper, the right kind of binding. And so what you have then is the opposition party, if they think that someone has done a sloppy job with their collecting and passing their petitions, then they will challenge them. And you can end up with people, even though it looks like they've got enough signatures, getting thrown off the ballot. Or in the case of, one incumbent Republican, Representative Nyberg from, I think, over in the 110th, that's south of Champaign, he failed to get his nominating petitions properly notarized. And the hearing officer and then the state board of elections essentially said, you don't have valid petitions, and they they threw him off the ballot. So he's going to have to do a write-in, or there is a possibility, if no one essentially runs in the primary on the Republican side, the Republican Party could appoint him after later in the year to run from that district. So it's more complicated than it should be. It's hard to change because if you're an incumbent, then you like the idea, or you got strong party backing, you like the idea of it being hard for people to get to challenge you in terms of the election. Presidential issues are a different thing. We normally don't have challenges to petitions for presidential candidates. They don't make mistakes. They have, and generally in terms of their campaigns, this year is unusual because we've got national challenges to former President Trump's in terms of whether he meets the qualifications or is in fact disqualified by the provisions of the 14th Amendment, which was passed to bar people that were involved with the Confederacy from running for office after the war was over, and so that's part of that 14th Amendment, and that's the Supreme Court will decide that, but in the interim, you've got challenges to former President Trump's petitions, and you have challenges to President Biden's petitions. Both of them kind of under the 14th Amendment. I don't suspect they're going to be sustained, but again, the State Board of Elections has to go through the process of hearing the challenges and making a decision. So when the smoke clears, probably this is, kind of to do about nothing in terms of, the presidential ballot. But, if the Supreme Court were to rule, that former President Trump, participated in an insurrection and isn't eligible, it obviously would scramble the whole election. So it's kind of a wait and see.
Okay. Wow. So, and you first started talking right there about the legislative candidates and that kind of rigmarole right there just to get on the ballot and kind of in there for good reason. You explained just a little bit, but you started talking right there. Let's move into the Republican primary race right now, because that can kind of mesh well with your first half of what you were saying right there. What's going on with dropouts, and what does that look like? Where do we go from there when a person that's running for that Republican spot drops out?
Okay, well, it makes a difference, again, where you are in a particular state with the mechanics of your process. We have not certified the ballot at this point, so we don't have an issue of having to, destroy a bunch of ballots and reprint them because a candidate is withdrawn, is on the ballot. Now, you can have situations where, we've had candidates die, and between the time the ballot is printed and the election, and I can't remember a case in Illinois, but in other states you've had essentially people that are dead being winning a nomination, and then you have to go through and the parties will replace them. But so again, it shouldn't be confusing to Illinois voters, because you probably should be down to just former President Trump and Nikki Haley, because there's plenty of time. You haven't certified the ballot at this point. In other states, it can be an issue.
Okay. And when it goes to certify that vote, what does that process look like?
So the State Board of Elections, has a calendar, and there's a process for hearing objections, and once those are all resolved, and people have withdrawn, then they will certify these are the candidates. That information then goes out to the county clerks, because, in a situation like, let's say, Decatur, part of the city of Decatur is in, being there are probably about 4 legislative districts in Macon County. So the clerk has to sort out and make sure that when you go to vote, that the ballot you get has the races that your precinct is in fact in, and that so it's a complicated process from the clerk's standpoint. Once they get they know who's running in the 110th district or whatever it happens to be, but county clerks administer elections in Illinois. They're the ones that set up the precincts, print the ballots, tally them. There are a few exceptions with, kind of like Chicago has a separate commission, a separate body that runs the Chicago elections. But normal circumstances, the county clerk is administering elections, and it's complicated in Illinois because, particularly downstate, we're going to have a lot of legislative districts that cross county boundaries, and we'll have cities that are in more than one legislative district. It is a lot of work for the for the county clerk to get things right and make sure, the elections are well run so that people have confidence.
Wow. Yeah, a lot does fall on that county clerk. And as we're moving into the spring here, as we're going to start to be hearing more of the issues, what are some of those topics that might pop up out at us? Are there any new ones that we haven't heard recently?
I think you're going to hear, depending on, again, the part of the state, but, you will hear things about the migrant crisis up in Chicago. What's more likely as you get to, more downstate districts, you're going to get people are going to be talking about, whether things need to be changed in terms of the Safety Act, which is cash bail. There are going to be people that want to maintain funding for various programs, like the school formula that we have adopted that we're trying to fully fund. At the same time, the state is going to be looking at a budget deficit at least for the next 2 years as the COVID funding goes away. And so, you've got a lot of new spending that's either on the books or that people want to engage in. It's going to run up against, a budget that is, you're not going to be able to fund everything. So we're going to fight over, should we be fully funding the school formula? People want a child tax credit to replace the federal credit. There are a lot more things that people want to spend money on than what we've got money for. And so it's going to be a very tight budget. And, those are going to be, decisions are going to be made before they get out of town in May that are going to be issues in the fall election. Did you come back and somehow, put money into the scholarship program for private students that got, that ended at the first of the year? Did you fully fund the schools? How did you vote on putting money in for a child tax credit? So, a lot of them are going to be fiscal. Some of them certainly will be criminal justice. Whether or not we have reproductive rights back on the ballot, we've done a lot with legislation, but we haven't done abortion or reproductive rights in terms of a constitutional amendment. Former Representative Jeannie Ives, who wants to get an advisory referendum dealing with things like parental notification for not only abortion but other reproductive and gender issues and stuff. So, it's the whole range of things. I don't know if there's anything new, but we're going to add a real budget crunch to everything else that we're talking about.
Wow. All right. We're going to learn more about that budget deficit moving into the spring primaries here, Safety Act and migrant issues all popping up here. And we're going to learn just a little bit more about that when we come back from break. We're sitting down right now with Dr. Kent Redfield, Professor Emeritus of Political Science at the University of Illinois. My name is Tim Zalabak, your host of the WTIM Morning Show. Do not go anywhere. We will be right back.
Your information station, WTIM.
Small towns are in, and Taylorville has what you're looking for. Whether for a visit or a move, Taylorville checks all the boxes, from the shops of Taylorville to Taylorville Eats and Treats, recreation, quality of life with affordable housing, and many civic and religious organizations, history, business development, places to stay or hold events. Taylorville has what you're looking for. Find out more by going to smalltowntaylorville.com. This message sponsored by the Small Town Taylorville Committee.
More than 80 million Americans depend on AM radio for their news, weather, sports, and a community connection. It's the backbone of the emergency alert system. It's critical that we keep AM radio in cars, because when cell and internet services are down, this free emergency service could be your only lifeline. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress we need AM radio in cars.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of
The
Broadcasters.
Miller Media Group is currently accepting applications from local nonprofit organizations to be featured in our monthly Community Spotlight campaign, sponsored exclusively by TCCU. If your nonprofit organization wants to be featured, complete the application form, which is available by calling our business office at 824-3395, or request it by sending an email to adminasst@randyradio.com, or find it by clicking the Community Spotlight application form icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com. Completed applications are being accepted through January 31st. Let's spotlight your nonprofit thanks to TCCU.
There's only one Central Illinois radio station that brings you the memories of the 60s and early 70s as you are cruising down the streets of your hometown. The dial position is 98.3 FM. The station is 98.3 WSVZ. From Macon to Vandalia and I-55 to I-57, cruising 98.3 plays the hits from early Elvis in the 60s to the British invasion of the Beatles, Herman's Hermits, and many more from the 1960s. Then we swing into the early half of the 1970s with artists like the Guess Who, the Doobie Brothers, and Elton John. Every song brings back something you remember about growing up. Set a button and crank up the station, playing good time rock and roll from the Tower of Power, cruising 98.3 WSVZ.
Sign up for People's Bank and Trust Save by Spending Roundup program, and they'll round up your purchases to the next dollar, then transfer that change to your savings account. It's as easy as shop, enjoy, and save. Get details by clicking their icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Hi, this is Jeff Robinson from Advanced Title. Whether selling your home on your own or through your local realtor, please give us a call at 824-8007 for all your title work needs.
Your information station, WTIM.
Welcome back to WTIM, your information station. I'm your host, Tim Zalabak. It's time now for the WTIM morning show. We're going to continue it. We'd like to thank our sponsors one more time here. People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better at Landmark. We've been talking with Dr. Kent Redfield, Professor Emeritus of Political Science at the University of Illinois. We've really been learning about it all moving into the presidential races here, Democratic and Republican, the Illinois primary ballot, and more there. But we're going to talk about some of the current issues that you might be hearing moving into some of these election times. And we're going to talk Safety Act a little bit here. You can take it from me, Dr. Ken Redfield. This will be something people are talking about here.
Oh, yes. And so, the law is on the books. We've now had some experience, a couple of months of experience in terms of, how the law is going to work in relation to eliminating, cash bail, and then going to conditions and proceedings under which you do pretrial release, or you don't, you keep somebody incarcerated until you get to a trial. So there's a lot of uncertainty. That's maybe too strong a word, but people are working through individual county prosecutors, judges, trial court judges, about how one administers the act. There have been issues, and there's an issue with appeals in terms of decisions that are made for or against denying someone pretrial release or the conditions under which you do pretrial release. The Supreme Court has appointed a commission with representatives from the 5 judicial districts to kind of look at how is the law being administered, what are the mechanics there, what are the pressure that's being put on, the judicial side of it in terms of, dealing with appeals, and that's going to result in, an examination, a study, and then a report from this group, and that may, so we may end up with a push to make it, change the administration of the law.
Dr. Redfield, I'm so sorry to cut you off right here. We are out of time. We already have hit our mark. I'm so sorry. We were getting right into it, but we're going to continue. We can continue this a little bit off air, but I really appreciate you coming in and talking to us
Oh, sure,
today.
anytime.
I really appreciate it. That's Dr. Ken Redfield, Professor Emeritus of University of Illinois. We thank him for his time. And this has been the WTIM Morning Show. Thank you for tuning in.
The Big 870 WTIM Assumption Taylorville, 96.1 W241 CF Taylorville, 107.5 W298 CD Shelby.